and welcome to Piano Teaching Success Q&A. I'm Gillian Erskine, and together with my colleague Paul Myatt, we put this program together so you can get answers to your questions. Well, we're so excited to be here today with our lovely guests and with piano teachers from around the world. And if you're with us live, let us know in the chat where you're from. Well, let me introduce our panel today. Dorla Aparicio, or Miss Dorla, as her students affectionately call her, maintains a full teaching schedule with over 40 students in a combination of early childhood, private and group piano in her Texas studio. She has a master's degree in piano pedagogy and is an adjunct music professor at the University of Keene in Texas. Dorla likes to support busy group piano teachers with her piano pyramid and piano camp resources, which we're going to hear about a little bit later in the show. Welcome, Dorla.
Thank you for having me. Excited to be here.
Our pleasure. Well, Katie Nolly has began her piano teaching journey with Paul and I in a 4-day school of music over 27 years ago. Oh my goodness, Katie, I can't believe it's 27 years. Whilst she was studying for her music degree, Katie went on to further studies in early childhood and arts education, completing her Masters of Education late last year. Along the way, she has been a generalist classroom teacher and a lecturer in arts education, and continues her love of music today by teaching piano in her home studio, as well as a specialist classroom music teacher in a Brisbane primary school. Katie has 3 primary school age children that love drawing and hate piano practice. Welcome, Katie.
Thank you very much. Lovely to be here.
Great to have you. Well, the theme of today's show with these lovely ladies is how to engage our students more and make music, learning music, fun for them and fun for us. And even perhaps inspire you with some ideas on extending or expanding your studios so you can increase your earning potential through teaching groups, even if it's in a small way. Well, Dorla, show us your studios and tell us a little bit about your teaching. We can just see a little bit in the background there.
Well, yes, just a traditional studio with grand piano, but I do have, about 6 more keyboards, digital keyboards for my group piano. So most of my students come every week, and we are in a group setting, learning and playing piano together.
Mm-hmm. And how many students do you have in a class?
I've had up to 8.
Yeah.
Now with the social distancing, I'm only doing up to 5 the most.
Yes. And when this finishes, it will, that you would go back to doing 8 is what you would normally have.
Well, it's not my preference. My preference is 6. But I've done up to 8 because, if I need to. But 4 is really cool. I find it very relaxing. So I don't know what I'll do after.
And you do multi-level classes, don't you?
I do. So in my group piano classes, students are ages 8 to 14. The preteens and teens, I have them in their own separate group from the 8-year-olds. But let's say my class is from 8-year-old up to 11, and they're all different skills and levels. Some are beginners, some have been playing for several years.
And how did you come to teach the multi-level classes? Like, is this something that you set out to do, or is it just something that happened?
Yeah, it just happened. I got frustrated in my group lessons, always trying to schedule the different progress that would happen in class. And so I just came up with a way that I could teach them all the same song together, but also respecting their different progress or whatever level they're in.
That's right. Well, and what sort of, and so that's your piano pyramid ensembles.
Piano pyramid.
Coming up with that, didn't
Yes.
you?
Yes. So it's 5 levels. The top level is early intermediate, and then the bottom level of the pyramid is your basic. Today's my first day of piano class.
Oh, okay.
And we harmonize and do everything together.
Fantastic. Well, we've got a video here with Paul talking to Dorla. So let's have a look at that.
Dorla, you and I have a common thread. We both love teaching group piano, and your piano pyramid sounds really, really interesting. So you've created a series of repertoire where you have up to 5 levels in a group. So tell me, how does that work?
Well, this is the reason I call it a pyramid. We're building a foundation with those youngest students playing the tonic and dominant and playing your half notes, quarter notes. And from there, it just gets a little bit more difficult. But I'm using traditional repertoire, piano repertoire, for my early intermediate students. And then from there, the levels get easier and easier to get down to that beginning student who would be playing your basic notes and rhythms. So with the different arrangements, each one is a little more difficult than the other. The students at different levels are able to play together.
Oh, sounds brilliant. You said you had about a dozen pieces?
Yes, yes. Standard piano repertoire for early intermediate piano.
So classical pieces like Czerny.
Classical pieces.
Yep.
I have Czerny, there's Vivaldi Spring, there is a Sonatina in C major, there's The Bear by Rebikov. So these type of pieces that are introducing our early intermediate students to classical repertoire, but really I'm introducing to all levels because they hear it and they harmonize with it, with the rhythm and the chords.
It's brilliant. And you've got lesson plans and step-by-step guides on how to do all this as well.
Yes. Yes. So right now what we're doing is amplifying the lesson plans. I think the beginning stages that I had there for the songs, there were lesson plan suggestions, but starting next week, the lesson plans are going to be much more detailed, telling you step by step what to do in class, how much time to spend in it. It will have the theory included and a link to where you can buy a game that goes exactly with that piece.
Oh, brilliant. And Dorla, we've got a little snippet of one of your recitals. When was that?
Luckily, that was in February of this year. We normally have our recitals in February because it's less busy for the parents. So there's always a good response. So we had it in February. All of our pieces were group piano pieces playing together. Over 300 family and friends were there. And then 3 weeks later, we were on lockdown.
Oh, well, let's have a look at that. Thank you so much. We'll share a link so that people can check it out.
Oh, just gorgeous, those kids. And
good
setting
to
up
see
her
them
back at the end. It's just fantastic. Well, I'd like to say hello to Heather Parry from Shoalhaven. Hi, Heather. And also Maxine Grice, who's joining us from Canberra. Great to have you with us today. And if you're also joining us from somewhere in the world, please let us know where you're from. Well, Dorla, for teachers who kind of like the idea of this, but they're thinking, well, I don't know how I could use it because I just teach privately. How can they use these multi-level ensembles with their students?
Oh, I'm so glad you asked that because there are teachers that use this in either their 2020 class. I don't know if everybody's familiar with that, but they have
Just do a quick explain on that one for us.
So it's like a rotation. They do, one student is at the private lesson, the other's at doing piano lab, the other's doing theory, and then every 20 minutes they switch. And so some teachers have an ensemble part to that 20, and they can use that piece in that way. Also, there's a private piano teacher that uses it with siblings. So they're all at different levels, and she loves to use it because she can, switch the levels off, and they can accommodate and the teacher gets to decide if it's going to be a trio, duo, or even something more.
Yeah, that's great. And even if you have the parent, if you have a musical parent who
Yeah.
comes, they could get to play with. There's nothing more beautiful than playing with your kids.
Yes, yes, it brings so much meaning to what you're spending your money on.
Yes, exactly. Oh, well, we're going to put a link in our show notes to Dorla's Piano Pyramid Ensembles. And I have to say, I just love those names. I thought, oh, what a
Oh,
fantastic. This is from someone who spends a lot of time thinking about names for things. It just takes me forever.
let me say, it wasn't my idea. I had a colleague that I explained to him what I wanted to do, and he's like, "Oh, a piano pyramid." So,
Well, you latched onto it and thought, yes, that's the
yes.
one. Good on you. Well, let's look more at group teaching because there's a lot of mystery around how to do it well. Because it can be done badly, but it also can be done really well, and provide even better outcomes than one-to-one lessons for many students. So there are 5 areas which I think groups really shine, and that is ensembles, which you've just seen, progress, which is really, we find that children in classes progress quicker, which we'll come to that in a minute. Friends, the opportunity of learning with friends and providing a social environment and learning from each other. Musical skills development is just so much easier to do in a group, and there's just the natural way that you learn in a group actually develops those skills. And games, just so much easier to do, and game-based learning is so much easier to do when there's friends to play with. And of course, performance opportunities because you have a really built-in audience. So let's just have a look at some of these in detail. So by teaching group piano, we get to do ensembles with our students, which is just so much fun. So what skills do you notice that your students gain from the ensemble work, Dorla?
Well, focus is a big one, and that is something they can translate into other parts of their life. Being able to focus on their part while everybody else is doing something different. Also, being able to note read and to hear the harmony of a song in context. I think that is just a good oral skill that they need to have just for, your regular ear training in music. You want to be able to understand what a C major is, not just playing one note or just playing one chord, but hear it. If you're only playing one note, what does it sound with all the other ways that you can play that same C major chord? So those 3 things I think are fabulous for group.
Thank you. Katie, you taught a lot of classes in your time. What do you like about ensembles?
I have taught plenty of both piano ensemble classes, so group classes.
Well, you've also played ensembles, huh?
I've played. I was about to say I learned in an ensemble class for years and years and years at Forte, and now I've also had the experience of being a specialist music teacher. So I've actually been able to use in a 30 children in a classroom situation because I've taken out the recorder program at our school and I've put in glockenspiels. So we use glockenspiels and make beautiful ensemble work with the children with that. So I really see, especially with piano, I feel that in so many ways piano can be a lonely instrument. It's not an orchestral instrument that is regularly part of ensembles, and you can't just join the local band with 27 other violins. So piano can be an inherently lonely instrument. And I think within that idea of group classes and creating ensembles, you're actually doing something as part of a team. And I see it just as important as going and having netball as a team sport or soccer as a team sport. You're part of that to create that team. And I really think that feeling of belonging with children is really important. So I feel like with piano group lessons and ensemble work is that real essence of being part of that team and belonging. So
and then there's the concerts with the festivals that we've done with when everyone dresses up.
Absolutely. It's, I mean, as awful as it sounds, it's a bit of a cliche, but it makes it fun. And I know that we sort of spend like, oh, it should be fun, but I also think that realistically it should be fun. Like life shouldn't be about doing something just because it's good for you. So I think that ensemble work lends itself to fun.
Yeah, I think you're right there. Well, here's a sneak peek into one of Paul's classes showing how he's used ensemble with intermediate level students, grade 4 piece. And I want you to look out for how well they stay in time with each other. No one's counting. We saw this with Dorla's class too. No one's counting. No eye contact. We just saw that with Dorla's class, and there's no one out the front conducting. So just listen. They're just listening as they play as one.
Group piano teaching is incredibly rewarding, and you can teach students of all ages and abilities in class. Current neuroscience proves that children thrive in an enriched learning environment. This is a place that offers the student many ways to explore and make or create music. Besides being a lot of fun for both the student and the teacher, this environment allows the student to learn how their brain wants to learn and not how you want to teach them. This is a big factor in all education at the moment. To teach like this, you need to use whole body learning strategies, which are based on the philosophies and teachings of Orff, Delcros, and Kadai. And this style of learning can actually be taught in private lessons, and even better when you have two private students overlap, or duet lessons, or even larger group lessons. I just love teaching group lessons, and I've been doing it for 30 years. The results and benefits for me and my students have far outweighed one-to-one lessons because students have such a broad-based musical experience. Even though I've taught groups for over 30 years, it's still a relatively new idea. And whilst many may be interested in teaching groups, for most of us, it's a mystery and they can't even contemplate how it can possibly work, let alone producing even better results than 30 minutes of individual one-on-one attention. It's just counterintuitive. Mostly this is because we have all learned in traditional 30-minute private lessons. So we don't have the experience of learning in a cooperative piano class environment. I'm going to show you a clip of a piece called Waltz Mystique by Ray Moore from the current Trinity College Grade 4 syllabus. To learn this piece, the children all had a task, which was to learn to play either the bass line, rhythm, melody, or counter melody, which I made up. All bar the counter melody are exactly the same as what's in the piece. Students then performed this as an ensemble. After mastering the ensemble, together they taught each other their part and gradually built up the whole piece. It was such a wonderful experience for these students to learn all the parts, and it's really helped them to develop their own improvisation and composition skills. There is no backing track used in this video. The children are playing the sounds from their digital pianos. Towards the end, you'll see the ensemble morph into the actual exam piece. Notice what happens when there is a rallentando. They all get out of time, but within seconds at the R tempo, they are all back playing together. These are such great music skills to have, and they've been developed through this enriched learning environment. The enriched learning environment created through group teaching requires a different approach, strategies, and techniques than for private lessons. So whilst you may not be ready to leap into group teaching right away, you can build your teaching skills and making your lessons more fun and the learning outcomes for your students deeper by using whole body learning strategies. And the great thing is these teaching strategies work both face-to-face and in online teaching. Would you like to know more? Join the waitlist for the studio.
Thanks, Paul. Well, let's talk about progress. Dorla, Paul just said that the progress can be quicker, it is usually quicker in class. Many teachers may wonder, how the heck could that be so? And how does that work in multi-level classes? What do you find with that?
Well, first of all, the beginners do really well learning in context, and they themselves want to be able to play the next level. They choose that on their own. That happened with my beginners last year. I hand out the music and they will I want to try level 1 this time. Or they come back the next week, it's like, I already know part 2. So they are, themselves, they're, have that impulse to learn more, because they see the progress that can happen inside their group.
Yes, that's exactly right. And with your scores, which we saw a bit earlier, it's a score, right? So all of the parts are there. So
that score that Paul showed is the teacher's score.
Yes.
And then there's an individual part for each one. But what I've started to do now is that I give everybody several parts. So if my class has mostly beginners, I will give them all part 1, 2, and 3. Mm-hmm. So they can, start looking to see what it looks like to play a different level.
Yeah.
And sometimes I've given them all 5 parts, and they can choose which one.
Mm. It's kind of a little bit like skeleton tracks, where you've got one part, and then they're looking. It's good for sight reading because they're looking at one part. Oh, what's a different? How much more do I have to do to step up to the next part?
Right. Yes. And I've seen them even. We have a little music staff map that the beginners can use to figure out their notes, and I see them bring it out and kind of like, oh, I know what note that is. Okay, and try to find it and play it on their own. And that's always a beautiful thing.
Yeah, because you talk about developing independent learners.
Yes, that is my goal. I do not divide my class into, 4 or 5 mini private lessons. We learn everything together. And then the older students that can go ahead and start learning. And I travel around the room to see who needs help. Yes. And of course, the beginners will need more help.
Yes.
But still, I want them to try it on their own, and then I can just go ahead and, guide them.
Yes, exactly. Well, let's talk about friends and social. How has learning with friends impacted your students, Dorla?
The kids are excited to come. Very excited to come to piano because they're not going to be by themselves. Yeah. My private students also like to come, but it's not as exciting when you're going to play games with other friends or, chit talk about whatever's going on. So that makes it exciting to come to piano lessons.
Yeah. I've sat in on lots and lots of Paul's lessons when we've been training new school owners and teachers and what have you over the years. And the energy, those kids just bound in the door, and it's like blind clubs coming in it's just awesome.
They feed off each other, and mostly in a good way.
Yes.
Yeah, there's things that will happen that you'll have to squash, but
yeah.
Overall, it's really a good experience for them to see that they're not the only ones doing this.
Yes, I know. Well, I remember back when I was learning, and I was like the only one doing it, and it was just so boring. Katie, you're lucky you never had that because you always learnt in the group. Katie, what ideas have you used to combine your mostly one-on-one students in your private in your home studio, so they get a little bit of time together learning with another student?
Yes, I try and do overlap lessons, so a few minutes either side of the join. Mm-hmm. So, and I can use exactly like what Dorla was talking about, multiple levels, but I use that time to do games or rhythm activities or things that we can do that are together. Sometimes we also will do mini performances. So I'll have, if one of the students has ended up with a piece that's close to a performance level or has an exam coming up or has just an opportunity to just play for someone else, we'll do you can play for the person after you, or when they arrive, I'll say, do you want to play for this person who's just had the lesson? So, and I try and, I don't have a huge studio, so my kids all do know each other quite well because we do concerts at the studio together. So I think that because of that, they do have those little mini friendships, even though they're not coming to their lessons all the time together. So I do try and develop that. And also my own children duck in and out of lessons constantly. So they have that that little
social connection,
social side of things. Yeah.
And tell us about your steady beat noodles.
My steady beat swords, they are so much fun. I'll take off my virtual background because I can actually demonstrate them a bit better without that on. So basically they are pool noodles cut into thirds, and then this is just a little bit of tape around the bottom of them, and they create swords. So what we actually do is I will put a track on, and it could be just a straight super metronome backing track with just a drum beat, or you can actually put on, like yesterday when I was using with a couple of my students, we used Can't Stop the Feeling from Trolls. So we then either hit in time, so it's a battle, you don't actually hit them, you can hit them on the floor if you're trying to stop children from hitting each other, which I often do in my school classroom because I use these at school as well, and they become, it's fun to have 25 year fours each with a noodle. So we've all got swords, and we can start off by hitting the floor. Then we actually can get into battling. So you then have all the oranges on one side, greens on the other side, and then you put the music on. And initially it is just to keep the beat. So we just hit in time, and we count it in groups of 8, and I will go up and then I'll do down. So they have to hit downwards. So a bit of a coordination challenge in groups of 8. Then we can actually introduce rhythms. So then we can actually start to say, we go ta, ti, ti, ta, ta, ti, ti, ta, and we actually then do it in various sets of rhythms depending on the level of the children, and it is a lot of fun, and I feel like I have just as much fun as the children, which is a bit sad.
Lightsaber music.
It is very much lightsaber, so it works really well with some of the Star Wars music as well. You could put on Darth Vader's theme and do a bit of steady beat swords to the Star Wars music too.
That's fantastic. So you can do this with, well, you can just do it with your student or yourself, I guess, or you can get
Absolutely. So you can do it in a paired situation with the student who's coming or going. You can do it with your own children if they're hanging around. I can do it with the student, especially if I'm really trying to work on a particular rhythm or a particular beat, or if it's something to do specifically with one of their pieces, I'll pull it out in the lesson and just use it that way. And you can do it with a whole class of students of either Dorla's size class or 25 children in a room. So they work in many different ways.
Awesome. That's so great. Well, Susan Head is another innovative teacher who has found a way to incorporate some connection with friends and learning together in her studio. Here's Paul with Susan.
Susan, you teach individual lessons in your studio, but you also teach groups. How does that work?
What happens at the beginning of the year is we all come together, find out what we've been doing in the holidays, work out what we want to do for the year. Everybody has their own individual aims. They write them all down. We decide maybe what the theme is going to be. I might have a few suggestions, but they often have their own suggestions. And we work out how that's going to progress through the year. Then at the end of the term, we all come together again in each subsequent term at the end of the term. And we do lots of musical games, things with musicality, but we also perform for one another.
So how do you work out the groups?
Oh, that's easy. All the kids who come on Wednesday, come on Wednesday. All the kids who come on Monday, come on Monday, irrespective of their level. So beginners get to see grade 7 people. Grade 7 people get to remember what it was like to be a beginner and can help them with understanding. And we all have a bit of fun. You know, it works really well. I was surprised the first time how well it does work. So it's something I've continued. Obviously, there are times when you want to change that up a bit, but mostly that's the easiest thing for everybody. If you know you're coming on a Wednesday, then you come on a Wednesday. And it's for an hour and a half, 2 hours. So it's quite a long stretch.
Thanks, Susan.
My pleasure.
I thought that was a fabulous idea, because very often that last lesson of term is sort of like, oh, no, you don't really want to start anything new. They don't want to start anything new. And it's kind of can be a bit of a lost lesson. So to pull everybody together and to do some performing and other games and ensemble stuff with them, with kids on the last lesson of term, I thought, what a fab idea. So let's get back to musicals. Our fourth reason or way that groups can be just fantastic is development of musical skills. Because group teaching just lends itself so easily to teaching musical skills like oral work, for example, because at the center of oral development is singing. And it's just more fun to sing with others, really. So what other skills do you find kids pick up more easily in group, Dorla?
Rhythm. Rhythm is fantastic. So I like to play the music that we're learning. Either I have recorded it on my clavinova or I play it live. And I ask the students to get their finger out and follow the score.
Yep, we do that too.
Then we divide, okay, now I'm only going to play the part for, pianist 3. And I will say the counts and I'll have them do it with me as they follow the score. So that's worked the best with the multi-level, because then everybody is looking right there at what they're going to have to do at the piano.
Yes, I find that point and sing type thing, or type we often do point. They're following and just pointing. It really kind of connects the eyes with the page, and because very often their eye tracking just gets a little kind of lazy and it goofs off or something. If they've actually got a point and sing, it's like focus.
Yes, that combination, eye, hand, and their brain really focusing on what they're going to eventually do at the piano. That is just a good way to have them ingrain those rhythm skills.
Yeah, absolutely.
Can I jump in there, Gillian?
Yes, Katie, I was just going to ask you, what do you think?
I was going to say, I actually have made, I call them magical pointing sticks. They're basically chopsticks with washi tape wrapped around them, and we use that. And I also find we can use that either as conductors, so you can either conduct the rhythm, or then you can use it specifically to point. And I really like that as well, because it almost forces I find it forces my students, if I just get them to put their fingers, they're a bit haywire, but you sort of go, you've got to actually make that pointing stick point directly to that note in time.
What's washi tape?
Oh, it's just coloured sticky tape.
Oh.
Just that,
I'm going to have to steal that idea.
Yeah, it's a good.
I love
always
that.
has fantastic creative ideas. Turns it up.
Yes, I like that. Thank you, Katie.
And if you call them magical pointing sticks, it just creates a whole different feeling about it, doesn't it?
Yes, and I have tons of chopsticks in the drawer, so yes.
Yes. It's an easy resource if one of them gets broken.
So, Katie, what about you? What about me? What other musical skills do you find that the groups just are really all out on their own for?
Well, I think everything you've covered. I think the oral, the listening outside the box. It's not just I have to worry about listening to myself, and then definitely that the external learning of someone else is playing that part. So I need to get my sight reading skills a little bit better to be able to get up to that level. And I think that so often sight reading is one of those droll activities that you sort of say, oh, sight reading is a boring thing you've got to do, but actually peripheral sight reading, because you're wanting to achieve something, is actually a far better, as Dorla was saying, they're wanting to get to that next level. And that little bit of competition between each other, that positive peer pressure is really helpful. So I think those skills in particular, the listening, because I think, as Dorla said, it's useful for so many other areas of life as well, just being able to focus in, but whilst listening in a group is really important, I feel.
Well, that's true. And generally, and Dorla, you touched on this before, pianists, I think Katie, you also did, pianists is just lonely. We play on our own, and therefore we actually rarely are good at collaborative playing.
And you find it's very difficult to teach someone how to be an accompanist, because pianists are instantly like, oh, you can accompany me. And it actually is a totally different skill set to have to listen to someone else while you are actually interpreting music musically. So it, like being an accompanist, which is actually not a lonely thing. Like I really love accompanying because it is that collaboration. So I think, but that's a completely different skill set to have. And I think that ensemble work within group lessons develops that it would just inherently, it doesn't need to be specifically taught. No,
exactly. And I often say that ensemble is multitask. It's musical multitasking. We have to read our own part, We've got to play our own part. We've got to, very often, if it's a score, you've got to read your own part within a score, follow along with kind of looking and keeping an eye on what other people are doing while playing my own part, listening to everybody, making sure I'm keeping in time.
It's like Paul said, it's the whole body learning.
Yeah. It's all inclusive. Well, let's look at some of the sort of perhaps challenges that people often think. Well, many teachers think you can't teach technique in classes. Tell us about what you do with technique, Dorla.
Well, the first thing we do in class is play scales. And I have them at their own level playing scales, and we do it together. So, and I pay attention to their hand position, and they have, a little ladybug to check that their hands are curved, and we play our scales with correct fingering. I just turn on the track on my clavinova, and I want them by the end of our school year to be able to play all 12 scales, whether it be pentatonic or 1 octave or 2 octave, major and minor. That's very important, and then to play with the correct fingering and hand position. Mm-hmm. I have had teachers mention that, you can't do technique with group. Well, I think it all has to do with the teacher. If it's important for the teacher, it will get done.
Yeah, exactly. And Paul did something. I'm not sure whether we've featured this on a program, but Paul has got an app on his phone called Coach's Eye, because Paul's actually a swimming coach in his spare time, which he has his coaching app for. So he showed them a seating position, and then he took a photo or video of them, and they're all going, did I do that? And they want to see themselves, and they're all learning from each other. Well, I can see how she didn't do it that way, and they can see it from a external perspective and also feeling it themselves. So that kind of learning about seating position, hand positions, all that kind of stuff can be really covered quite well with groups, can't it?
Yes.
Yeah. Katie, what about you? What do you do with technique?
Well, some of the stuff that I do in my private one-on-one, but I also have used within groups teaching situations, is to mess around with things like scales and to make, we call them food rhythms or crazy rhythm scales, so that it takes that single sort of crotchets up and down or quavers up and down, and actually makes it a little bit trickier because of the changes in fingering. So what we'll do is we'll think of our favorite food, or we'll think of a food we absolutely hate. So we might say, or think of a really strange food. So we might say blueberry pizza is a really strange food to think of. And then we actually play the scales in that rhythm. So you go blueberry pizza, and it won't necessarily, whatever food you choose, won't fall in with the natural 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4 pattern of your scales. But it actually then makes you think twice about it, so it's actually hard for the students to do it. It also doesn't always fit with the end of the top of the scale, so you actually have to sometimes have your rhythm turn around at the top, which is also really good for us to then think outside that. It also stops the thumb thumping as on the way up, so you don't get that 1, 2, 3, 1, the thumpy thumb, if you've actually got the rhythm in a different pattern. So during COVID, we've done different rhythms. I tend to use a lot of food, but we've done things like where would you rather be except here? So it's like sitting on a beach, sitting on a beach, sitting on a beach. So, and just having different fun rhythms to be playing our scales to. I just feel like it breaks up the monotony of it, and also gives a few other technique things that you can then focus on.
Yeah, I love that. I love this blueberry pizza one. I was just doing that on my own, blueberry pizza. It would really turn up the concentration.
It really does. And because you put it out to the kids to think of the ideas for the rhythms, they can be really kooky. So they're not always going to fall into a natural rhythm pattern. And I run with that. So if it's something that comes out really strange, it's particularly good because it really does twist their brains.
Yeah. Love it. Fantastic. Oh, well, Christmas is just around the corner. And here's Paul to tell you what we've got to make Christmas fun in your studio.
It's that time of the year again when we start getting ready for Christmas, so we're launching our Discovering Piano Christmas album with its selections of the world's most favourite Christmas carols, beautifully arranged for students of all abilities and ages. Arrangements from very easy piano to intermediate standard of all your favourite carols, including Joy to the World, O Christmas Tree, Silent Night, The First Noel, and of course the number 1 and 2 of the Christmas song hit list, Jingle Bells and We Wish You a Merry Christmas. This pack also includes everything you need to create the perfect Christmas student recital with invitations, Christmas carol lyrics book, and certificates. The Discovering Christmas album is great value for any piano teacher at just $25 US, 31 Aussie or £19. And it includes 16 studio licensed arrangements and backing tracks for all of those pieces. You can also get the Discovering Christmas album completely free with the purchase of a Practice Buddy teacher pack this month. The teacher pack includes 5 grades or levels of your favourite examination board: ABRSM, AMEB Comprehensive and Piano for Leisure, ANSCA, Royal Conservatory, or Trinity College London. And this month your teacher pack includes a free student pass and the Discovering Christmas album. You can get your Discovering Christmas album or Practice Buddy teacher pack from Piano Teaching Success or Black Rock Music. You can even pay in the currency of your choice. Get yours today and make Christmas a huge success in your studio.
Thanks, Paul. Well, if you haven't guessed it already, Katie's a very creative person. And Dorla is too. We've got 2 very creative people on our show today. And Katie's written a book for children. It's a children's picture book called Marvellous Mummy, and it's illustrated by gorgeous husband Giuseppe. And here's Paul to tell us all about it.
Katie, I remember back when we started Forte and you being one of the most creative students that we ever had.
That's very kind.
Now you've done lots and lots of degrees and things, and you've also just written a book, and your husband, who's an illustrator, was the illustrator. It's a children's book, and it's called
Marvellous Mummy. It's all about mummies. It's about all the dimensions of being a mum. So it was one of those situations where there's a lot of mum books on the market, and I thought sometimes they're all a bit saccharine and overly sweet, and everything's lovable and caring. And I wanted to cover that side about being a mother, but also the realism of it, and also to make mothers out to not just be that cuddly, cute thing. So there's a page about being daring and strong, and there's a page about being cranky, which is realistic, and my children will agree with that. But yeah, so
I believe that's their cranky mummy page is their favourite page.
It is their favourite page. It's the one I think that's most like me. But yes, so it is a bit of a fun little read for younger children. So it is a picture book, and it's for little kids, but it's fun to read. It's got a lot of good language, and whilst not being musical, it's quite musical and rhythmic to read. So I had to put a little bit of that in when I was writing it.
Of course. And illustrated by your husband, Giuseppe.
Yes, he's occasionally talented.
And you've also been involved in writing an arts education book. Tell me about that one.
Yes, I have co-authored an ebook that's available for pre-service education students who are studying generalist classroom teaching. So they're not for music specialists or arts specialists per se. I lectured in arts education specifically for about 8 years, and one of my colleagues and I were really wanting to get across that the arts need to be demystified with generalist teachers. Sometimes they're just placed in that little category of, the specialist music teacher will cover that, but the arts can actually run through the whole curriculum. And so we really were all about integrating the arts across. So you've got music, dance, drama, visual arts, and media arts, and putting them through the daily classroom life.
So there must be lots of cross-curricular activities with piano teaching as well.
Absolutely. Piano, music in general goes hand in hand with dance, and I use a lot of movement. I think dance in the primary school curriculum especially is very badly named. It should be called movement. And I use, as you would, Paul, a lot of movement in my teaching, and that really aligns with a lot of the dance curriculum. So that very much is great to get your kids up and moving when you're not just sitting at the piano the whole time. So I found that has been fantastic as well. So yes, definitely.
all the research says that if you move when you learn, you're going to learn a lot more effectively.
Absolutely. If it's a full body experience, it is going to, for most people, will definitely be taken in more, like there's a more foundational learning state. Yeah.
Thanks, Katie.
Well, Dorla, you've put together some curriculums that incorporate a combined arts approach called Piano Camp. And piano teachers can use these for vacation programs. So we've got some photos of Dorla's Piano Camp. And Dorla, I'm just wanting you to walk us through them as we put them up.
So Piano Camp is something that we do here in the United States in the summer, just to add something different, maybe to bring in new students. And this one right here, Under the Sea, is for preschool, ages 4 through 6. We're telling the story of Juanita, the lobster, the Spanish lobster. And so you see we have lobsters on the piano to learn our 3 black keys. We have a lobster that helps us with our hand position, but it includes 5 lessons, and it takes about 2 hours to complete, and you can space that out any way you want. But everything that you need to plan that lesson is in this Piano Camp curriculum, is what we call it. And we play the piano. We learn, I think, 3 different songs in this one.
And that's 5 lessons of 2 hours each, so 10 hours all up.
Right.
Yes.
Right. This one is Flip the Lid for ages 7 and up, and it's all about the grand piano. And it can be an upright also, but it's an acoustic piano, really. Here you see the technician has taken the piano apart to explain to the children how it works. And then included in the lessons, we go each lesson through a different part of the piano, how it works. There's beautiful illustrations in it, so the children can label it, and also they put things inside the piano and play the piano. It's very carefully done.
Yeah.
It's so that the students can understand what a prepared piano is and the history of the piano, and make it so much more interesting. Yeah.
And the other one I really love is your STEM one.
Musical STEM. So that's combining science, technology, math, and engineering with music. And so my goal with that was to understand the concepts of these different subjects. With music, we have some of the same things that work together. So we have vibrations, electricity, patterns, just all of those things. In music, we can do the same thing. Bending, how do we bend sound? How does light bend? And all that is combined with learning to play the piano.
And for those that are thinking, I don't know how to do that, it's all there, isn't it? You've got all of the resources.
There's even videos that go, my students and I made some videos for the experiments, and it's all very easy. And some teachers this past summer even did some online. Like they did their piano camp online, and
wow, that's
yeah,
good.
all that is included there. So it'll be very easy for you to organize.
Well, we've got a little video showing one of your experiments, playing the bananas.
Yes, we use a makey, and we learn about electricity, and then we connect them to the computer and the bananas. And yeah, the kids can play, a scale. You can do it with celery. I don't know, rubber bands. They're just different things you can do with it.
Well, let's have a look at those children playing with the bananas now.
Yeah, the chord part. So yeah.
You can play again. Keep going.
That's fantastic. Well, we'll put a link to Dorla's website in our show notes. It's missdorla.com, and where you can get those fantastic resources from. We've got school holidays coming up in the Southern Hemisphere, so it could be something you might want to do in your studios. And I think you've even got Christmas holidays coming up as well in the Northern Hemisphere, don't you? So maybe something to
We do, yeah.
as well. Well, let's have a look at practice. And one of the things that's fantastic things about group is very often you don't really have to kind of drive the whole, practice home, because there's that natural inclination to, I've got to get this better because those kids are doing better than I. And it seems that the class seems to progress like this always, and then it's really about the children sort of keeping up with it. And I found that I've never really had to do too much about practice, but with private students, you really do. So, Katie, what do you do to get your kids to practice?
So we have a bit of peer pressure, like we use in the group situation. And again, because my students do sort of tend to know each other, there also is that knowing peer pressure. I have a practice challenge chart that I run for each semester of practice things. So here is my current one that's I've taken off my wall. And as you can see, every week the children come in and they notate their practices at home. I have little stickers, I actually do little shapes that they glue into their notebook each week that I just print out on the computer. So there might be little stars or ladybugs or whatever, and they colour them in however many practices they do. As a general rule, they're pretty good and they're pretty honest. It's not like I have children that pretend, because I can tell pretty quickly whether they've told me if they've done 16 practices and they've actually not. So, and the parents are really good at monitoring it as well. So we have a little list of what makes a practice. They can colour in one of their little things every time they do an official practice at home. And then they come in and they get to colour in their chart. And at each little level here, there are little mini prizes just out of my prize box. And at the top, we get like an end of semester large prize. And sometimes it is a first in best dressed. So as you can see, the competition does heat up, because this term it is a collection of different items that in Australia we have a shop called Typo, and a lot of my students are really mad about Typo. So I bought all these little crazy toys and stuff that they can win from Typo. You can even get a giant squishy croissant. So you can choose something out of the big prize box at the end. Last semester we did ladybug ocarinas. So here's one of my little ladybug ocarinas, which are really cute. So they're really sweet.
They are cute. I thought
They are adorable.
When you told me about those, I thought the parents might be going, thanks, Miss
There
Katie.
was a bit of that. I did get a text message when one of my students got it. She her grandmother dropped her off and picked her up, and then I get a text from her mum, who's a good friend of mine, later that afternoon. What on earth have you just given my daughter? I didn't give it to her. She earned it. She goes, it's one step down from a recorder. I said, don't you talk like that to me.
Do you have recorders over there, Dorla?
Yes. I'm not sure if all the schools use it, but I know that the teachers sometimes learn to use recorders. And yes, the same thing. It's not a good thing to send home.
No.
It's not a good thing to use in a music classroom either. That's why I use glockenspiels, because recorders upset me. So
Yes.
so I do find that my little practice challenge chart does really assist for that private motivation for private students.
Is it a race to the top? I thought it
is a race to the top, from the point of view of, especially if the prizes are different. Like I've only got 2 or 3 of these. So if you see that in the prize box and you really want that, first in best dress, you get to the top. A couple of years ago when we had the a Commonwealth Games or an Olympics or something, I did it so that if you had to reach certain levels, and if by the end of semester you got to the top, I actually got the children gold medal. Like I actually bought medals with their names engraved on them, and we had a medal presentation ceremony. So they either leveled to a gold, a silver, or a bronze. So we just have different. I mix it up each time depending on how I'm feeling or what. Sometimes I get a bit of some of the students give me ideas. Like I had one of my teenage students say, I love Typo, just love buying things. So I thought, that's a good one to go with this term.
Yeah, very good. Dorla, what about you? What do you do for practice and centers in your studio?
Well, listening to Katie, I'm feeling a little bit. So what I did this past year is I always have candy that the kids like.
Yeah.
And just for coming to piano, you can get something at the end of class and take it. But then we had other things like bringing your books to class, learning your song, memorizing it on time. Things like that would earn you points for your team.
Oh, like
And
that.
then, so the team with the highest points then got the biggest trophy at recital. They
It's a
all
good one.
got trophies, but they were all different sizes depending on the amount of points. So that was fun for them.
Yeah, that would be really fun, but that's a great idea. Oh, well, performance, Katie, I know is dear to your heart. So what do you do in your studio around performance and memorization and performance?
Yes, I agree, Gillian. I think that performance is one of those important things. Why learn an instrument if you're not going to share that with other people? I do know that we learn to play for ourselves, but I also think it's lovely. And also, most of the students you get coming along do have that occasional parent who goes, "Come on, you can play piano, play that for someone." And so I remember my own dear mother would do that when I was a kid, and you'd get to somewhere and nowadays it's even harder, as especially a piano player, because they put pianos in shopping centres and they put pianos in train stations, and you always get your mother sitting there going, "Come on, you can play piano, play something." So I always ensure with my students they've always got at least a handful of pieces they can always play. So we have what we call a warm-up song that they start every single practice with. It might be a song they learnt 3 or 4 months ago, so it's probably something they've been playing for ages. They should have it completely memorized. They should sit down. It's their first thing they play. Then they do the same thing when they walk into their lesson. They sit down, and that's the first thing they do. They just play their warm-up song. It's a positive thing as well. It's look what I can do. It's a good start to my piano practice. Nothing's overwhelming. It's nice and easy. Gets them used to whatever instrument, especially moving from their home instrument to mine. They then also can come and sit down on the piano, play their warm-up song. But I also have a set of other songs pieces they have to always have known. So every one of their practices, I ask them to go back and play at least 2 of those songs, just once through. So it keeps them in their repertoire. So we talk about the word repertoire, and that it's good to always have some pieces sitting there that we can always play. And so that when you go to Great Aunt Ethel's house and Mum says, "Oh, look, we've got a piano, play something," then they can.
Yeah, absolutely. So good, so important. What about you, Dorla? What do you do?
I love that idea. I love that idea of having them always play the same thing so they always have something there. Yes. We only do 1 performance per year. The kids are just way too busy, and I hate having to always scramble scheduling. So we have 1 big recital in February. And now that we've been on lockdown, every 4 weeks, I tell them we have a recital, and it's a video recital. So I record them playing. And then last time I made like a video for that day and sent it to the parents. Or I just share it on social media, and that is our performance for now.
Yeah.
Sorry, Gillian. I was saying I've been doing a similar thing, Dorla, because I teach at a private piano at a school, and the parents aren't allowed on site at the moment. So I do send home a lot of video links for them to be able to see. I do a lot of duets between myself and the student, and I'll record them every couple of weeks and send them home, because I think that's really important for the parents who aren't able to be in touch with the lessons to be able to also see their students. I should also jump in and say most of the ideas I say I'm telling you today I've stolen from someone somewhere. So I shouldn't actually claim any of them as my own. They're just other people's excellent ideas that I'm sharing with you.
Well, true, but sometimes you also do this little extra thing, like, instead of a stick, you kind of wrap it up and you call it a magical musical stick, and that just takes it all to a whole new level, Katie.
I think the musical stick was my own, but I definitely know the warm-up song idea I read on a blog a little while ago from someone, and it's stuck true with me, because I think that it's that constant feeling of success, that we can always have something that we're playing, and not always just learning things. So I think we need to feel confident, and that confidence is boosted by success.
Absolutely. And you really need them to do something to just kind of, in a class, we always do the hello song to start with, because it just gets them in the zone, pulls them in here, and it's a routine that we always do. So having a warm-up piece for a private lesson, it's a routine. It gets them, oh, I'm in the zone, I'm having my lesson, blah, blah, blah. And it's got, kills many birds with one stone. Yeah. Wow, what a fabulous time we've had today. That's all we've got time for, unfortunately. I think we could keep on going here for ages. I'd like to thank Dorla, Aparicio, and Katie Poli for being with us today. And we're going to be back in 2 weeks' time with another episode of Q&A. Heather Smith will be joining us from Utah, Heather teaches both individual and group lessons in her studio and is the US representative and examiner for the Royal Conservatory of Music. Elise Russell from Texas in the US will be with us. Elise has developed her own piano exam curriculum, which has a big emphasis on developing musical skills and creativity. So looking forward to meeting with Elise. And Christopher Norton, who needs no introduction. Christopher's music has been enjoyed by tens of thousands of students over the years. His music is featured in most, if not all, exam syllabuses. And so I'm really looking forward to having Chris on the show. Well, remember, you can join our watch list and receive the episodes straight to your inbox. Or you can catch the replay on our Facebook group, Piano Teaching Success. In the meantime, send us your questions. There are 3 ways you can do that. You can send us an email, you can post it in our Facebook group, or you can ask a question on our website, pianoteachingsuccess.com. Well, I'd like to thank Paul Myatt, who's been producing today's show and is responsible for all the behind-scenes tech. On behalf of all of us, stay well, and we'll see you next time.